Right, my reaction to last night's fight between Tyson Fury and Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte loses on the 6th round KO uppercut. The third time's been caught with uppercuts. First time with AJ, second time Povetkin, third time Tyson Fury. Clearly hasn't learned a lesson. Hasn't learned anything, has he? You know, learn how to defend that particular shot, uppercut. The things with Dillian Whyte, I knew he wasn't going to win this fight. Most people knew he wasn't going to win, unless he found that lucky punch. Things with Dillian Whyte, the only way he was going to win this fight is if he somehow turned into a Mike Tyson or a Joe Frazier or a James Toney. But he was never going to do that. He's not as gifted as that. He was never going to do that. He's got he's not fast on his feet and his head movement's slow. And he throws too many wild overhand shots, which you can see coming a mile off. And even before the fight, it's obvious. Dillian Whyte is good, but he's not that good. I've been saying that for years. Dillian Whyte isn't that good. You know, and to big Fury up as the greatest just because he beat Dillian Whyte is laughable. It's really fucking laughable. Because Fury hasn't done anything that AJ hasn't done. He knocked out Dillian Whyte with an uppercut. Povetkin, who's 40 years old, knocked Dillian Whyte with an uppercut. So Tyson Fury hasn't done anything different, but he's going to get treated as such. He's going to get treated as a king because he's Tyson Fury, and everybody wants to open his ass crack and start licking. Unbelievable, but that's how he is, you know. Now, as for the actual fight last night, see, Dillian Whyte, he actually got in positions to actually do something. Like, there was parts of the fight where he was cornering Fury, and Dillian Whyte didn't let go of he didn't let his fist go. What is it with some fighters and too overcautious of throwing punches? It's stupidness. Klitschko did it and Dillian Whyte's done it. There was positions where he could have done something and he didn't. You know, and obviously with someone with a good ring IQ as Fury, you need to capitalise on your chances. I mean, look what Otto Walling did. And Otto Walling is he that good? Not really, but he wasn't shy of throwing punches and he caught Fury with quite a few. Even cut him and should have won, really, because of that nasty cut, which could have been career threatening. But that fight last night, Dillian Whyte, one, he was getting outboxed anyway, but when he had chances to do something, he didn't do it. So it was inevitable he was going to lose. And as for Whyte and Fury as well, switching stances, I'll get with Whyte first, right? Dillian Whyte, why start off southpaw when you know you're not going to go the whole fight or consistently go through the fight doing southpaw? When people switch stances, right, they need to realise that it doesn't really confuse the opponent. What it does is it kind of makes them think. Then after that, he's still the same person. He's still got two arms and he's still got two legs. So switching stances doesn't do anything. And there's no point in doing it if you're not comfortable doing it. If you're not as good as your left as you are your right and vice versa, why switch? Now, sometimes if I switch, right, if I'm sparring or practicing, whatever, if I'm switching, there's a purpose for it. You switch because it's like Mike Tyson, right? He's an orthodox fighter, but he switched when it was necessary to switch, when he's throwing the punch he wants to throw. Then he went back into his orthodox, from southpaw to orthodox. You don't just do it because, oh, look at me, how are you going to punch me? I'm in a different stance, you're not used to this. No, he's still a target, he's still the same person. So there's no point in switching. I mean, Fury did it as well. The second round he switched to southpaw and Whyte switched back to orthodox. Kind of strange. You're not going to go the whole fight doing it. You're not going to risk getting knocked out in a stance you're not normally used to, just for the sake of it. If you're doing it to throw a particular punch, like a liver shot, solar plexus shot, a particular hook that you want to throw, lead hook that is, then you can switch stance, because then that will confuse them because they've got literally seconds to react. But to switch when you're distant punching distance away from him, doesn't make sense. When I say punching distance away from him, I mean a comfortable distance away where he's got time to react. Doesn't make sense. But anyway, the fight went how I thought it was going to go. I knew Dillian Whyte wouldn't win. I knew the public would act like Tyson Fury as beating Lennox Lewis, Holyfield, Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali rolled into one over a victory over Dillian Whyte. I mean, like I said before, he hasn't done anything that other boxers haven't done, but he's going to get sucked off because of who he is. Now, unless he fights Usyk and AJ, or whoever has the belts, and becomes undisputed, which means, if people don't know what undisputed means, go and look it up, yeah? Until you're undisputed, you can't call yourself the greatest of any era. You can't. Otherwise, what would be the point in having undisputed in the first place? What would be the point? You can't call. What's the point in calling somebody the greatest of any weight class if they're not undisputed, at the very least, or have had a very, very long career of fighting the best and winning all the belts? Fury hasn't done any. Yeah, he's won all the belts. Literally won them all in different periods of time. But there's a lot of contracts that have been broken, like the Klitschko one. There's fighters that he shouldn't have been fighting, really, like Tom Schwartz. You know, he's had periods of time off where he's abused drugs and drink, you know. Yeah, he's come back and he's won. But fighting Wilder 3 times and Dillian Whyte, to me, it's not really enough. Beat Usyk, beat AJ. Become undisputed, then you can be claimed the greatest of this era. Until then, absolutely no chance. Not in my opinion, anyway. Neither is AJ the greatest. If Dillian Whyte won last night, he wouldn't be the greatest just because he beat Tyson Fury. Usyk, he isn't the greatest. I mean, he's one of the greatest because he's been undisputed cruiserweight champion. Now he's unified heavyweight champion, so he's one of the greatest. But until you're undisputed heavyweight champion, you're not the greatest yet. Facts.